Wonderful. It's been a great morning. Thank you, Noah. Thanks for inviting us. Yeah, we're going to jump in a little bit. We've had a lot of people talk to us this morning about how it works, how they're using this. But Noah and I thought we could talk to Sarah a little bit about really kind of what's under the hood. And Sarah, you've been working in AI for a few years, yes? And it must be kind of a bit of a strange moment when the spotlight is upon you and suddenly everybody's excited about the work you do. How's it feel? How's everything at work?
Yeah, it's crazy, I think, just absolutely insane. I've been working on generative AI. I've been working on AI my entire career, but generative AI, really starting with GPT-3 when we were putting it into practice in Microsoft. So for example, we developed GitHub Copilot, which if you're not familiar, is an application for developers to make it easy for you to code rapidly. And so we use basically a version of GPT-3 to auto-complete your code, help you, take suggestions, go faster. And I think that was kind of the first killer app where we were like, oh, wow, this is real. Like, developers love it. They're able to save time. But I think even then, it was kind of a question of, but how many other use cases? How well is this really going to work? And so even as someone working on it, it was still kind of felt like the early days. And then last summer when GPT-4 came out, it was that moment that I think if you work in technology, you wait for your whole career, which is when it had crossed the threshold to just being something amazing. And so at least inside of Microsoft, the entire company kicked into gear saying, we need to put this in every product we have as quickly as possible to make people's lives more productive, like GitHub Copilot. And it's just been crazy.
When you say it's something amazing, what does that mean? What was the magic that you identified?
Yeah, I think my first experience interacting with it was you're used to seeing like a couple examples that are good, and they've always been kind of carefully cherry-picked on a slide, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty impressive. But then when you try like one thing over, it's like, nope, this is not even close. And it was like everything that I asked it, it was great. Hey, write me this song, write me a story based on a character I already know, and then write it in Chinese and change the flavor. And it was right, and it was right, and it was right again. And that I think was just like something that surprised a lot of people. That's
wonderful. And so, but what happened to kind of suddenly get people like this lot in a room? What suddenly caused a kind of excitement for a creative business community?
Yeah, I think that the key moment for that was really, ChatGPT, right? Once it wasn't just an API-based technology that most people could not easily use, but it was in an interface where you could just chat with it, which was natural, and you could ask it to help create things for you. I think that's when people really started seeing the potential of it, and now, at least all my peers, myself, we use it to brainstorm. We use it to help quickly, write copy that we edit. We use it, I think, in all sorts of daily kind of creative tasks that are important.
Wow, even you folks are as well, yeah?
Yeah.
So what's really going on though? Kind of like I'm always surprised if I ask the same question to ChatGPT, it comes back with two different answers. Like, why does that happen? Why isn't it just like Google, where I get, the same ranking every single time?
Same ranking each day, different rankings, different days.
Yeah.
But no, it's really part of the way, this is a question we get a lot, and it's the way that the models are built, right? The core task, the way we are training the model, is telling it just to predict the next word in a sentence. And so we're giving it tons of example sentences, and it's learning this word goes after that word often. Ooh, but other times this word goes after it. And so it's building a kind of a distribution of what is the most likely word, and there's many different words you could choose, but some are going to be more likely than the other. And so that randomness you're seeing is selecting a different word in that distribution and therefore kind of taking a different trajectory. And it's actually as simple as that. And I think one of the big surprises is how much you can accomplish with such a simple mechanism. It doesn't seem like that could really do all the things we were just talking about, but it does.
Okay, it's as simple as that. Yeah.
And a lot of
But you're talking a little bit about probability, and the fact is it guesses the next word
Yep.
in real time. Yeah,
Yep.
it's going to write it, it's guessing as it prints. Yeah.
In a sequence, just this one and that one, and that's how it works. And so, if you sort of change the settings, you can change how likely it is to select any particular word. And so that's some of the variation, or what people call temperature, is that change of selecting which word is going to be the most important.
Okay. We're all here to work out how to make lots of money out of this stuff, okay? So let's talk about training a little bit. I think Noah started talking about fine-tuning.
Yep.
And like, how do we kind of get it to do the things we want it to do? Can you talk a little bit about what that process is and why we need to do that?
Yeah, this is something that has been evolving with the technology generations. So these models we call kind of a new term that's being used as foundation models. And the idea with a foundation model is you want to give it as much information as possible. It is the most powerful when it understands the maximum amount of concepts, language, everything. And so the base model, in this case like GPT-4, we train to know as much information as possible. And an area that's very important to me, responsible AI, we actually want it to understand all of that harmful content, all of the horrible stuff on the internet, hate speech, et cetera, because that allows us to take the next step, and we can talk about those options, whether that's fine-tuning or prompt engineering, to coach it or instruct it to behave how we want, to know not to use that information, to be able to recognize it and respond accordingly. And so the next layer is then taking that base model and building it into your application. And one of the things that's powerful about the models today is actually you can go really far with prompt engineering. Just by designing the right instructions to the model, then you can get it to behave really the way you want and get the right generation. In some cases, if you have a language that you, for example, is sort of unique to your organization, then a way to teach that to the model is fine-tuning. And so for GitHub Copilot, where we wanted it to understand programming languages, we fine-tuned GPT-3, which is just a final step on top of the training where we teach it with a little bit of additional information so that it was able to use those coding languages more effectively. But what we're seeing with the latest models is that you don't even need to fine-tune, that prompt engineering is enough in most cases.
Wow. So, because the way I think about fine-tuning is you sort of say, this is what the prompt is and this is what the expected answer is. Give me some more like that.
Yeah, and there's two different techniques. Another one very similar where we give it side-by-side answers, and this is a technique we're using in safety and in responsible AI, and saying, okay, if someone asks a sensitive question, this answer is the one we like, this answer is worse. And so we give it lots of pairs of that. Mm-hmm. And that's how I was saying, kind of send the model to finishing school. That's how instructing on which types of responses we want and which types of responses are undesirable. And so we use that actually as a final technique, even in the models that are available to you today.
Are you saying that the model is all-knowing then, or has all the information? Do we need to add any further research or content or brand guidelines, or where does that stop and start?
Yeah, so at Microsoft, we actually have a really specific view for this, which is the model is built to be this powerful interface, right? It understands these concepts, it understands human language, but it doesn't know your data, it doesn't know your business. And so the real power is when you combine these two. And if we want to get a little more technical, we have a pattern that we're calling RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And the idea here is you want the model plus your data. And so to answer a question, for example, if you're building a chat interface, then you want to enable the model to take the most important information from your data source, for example, from a search or from a vector database, put that as part of the response and answer based on your information. And so that, for example, is a simplified version of how we built the Bing chat, where the model does a search on the internet. It uses those search results to answer your question so that the information is fresh and accurate, not just based on what it had memorized in the training data.
That's great. So you're busy kind of, as well as actually building this stuff, you're also evangelizing responsible AI on behalf of Microsoft. And then when you talk to brands, companies, are there some initial steps that you're recommending? How should they get involved in the use of AI?
Yeah, That's, I think, a question that everyone's asking themselves, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the first step, right, is understanding what do you want to do with it, right? What's the most important to your brand, to your business? What are the opportunities there? And then I think just getting your hands on it. Once you get a feel for it, once you understand like what it's great at and where it's not as great, then the creativity, I think, just comes out. And so one of the things I like best about my job is that I actually have no idea how everyone is going to use this. I think a year from now, you all are going to have done such amazing things, and I'm going to be learning from you about the potential of this technology. So I think don't be afraid to experiment is basically what we're telling everyone. And make sure you understand what it can do and what it can't do. Like from a responsible AI point of view, how we've built safety into several layers that you can already use, just understanding how that works. So those are some simple
today,
things.
we see a lot of the interface as a chat interface. Should we think about any other ways that it's going to manifest as a technology, or?
Yeah, I think people are really excited about chat because it's one of the most human things, right? We can finally communicate in a way that's very natural to us and get the application or the system or the model to do what we want. But if we go back to my example from earlier, GitHub Copilot, that is not a chat interface. That looks more like Smart Reply. So it's just as you're typing, guessing, how do you complete this function? How do you write this code? And that's actually been a way for people to be very productive because it's taking all of that application context and it's just completing it for you. And so I think there's a lot of energy in chat right now, but I think we're going to see a lot of the breakthroughs in terms of how do you build this into workflows that people already have and that put that context, put your data, your workflow into the model so that you're not having to grab all of your work, drag it over into a chat interface on the side, get an answer, drag it back.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah, I think it's going to impact websites, mobile apps in the way that in the past we've had to take customers through various steps, and now the machine can respond or anticipate what the person's going to want to have and serve up a product or serve up a service.
Yeah, and I think it changes the user experience, right? When you had to do a lot of education and people were running around trying to figure out where to put a tool tip so that people could figure it out. Now you can. That's where chat is powerful. You can just have this on the side and be like, how do I do this? And it just tells you. Or even better yet, as you said, it just does it for you, right? And so I think it's really going to change the way we interact with our applications.
Cool, can't wait. So let's finish off by talking about Microsoft and what Microsoft's going to do next with AI, ChatGPT, and more.
Yeah, I think you can see what we're trying to do, which is, we've released a series of products that are often called a Copilot, right? GitHub Copilot was the first one, but now we have M365 Copilot, which is integrated into our Office suite of products. And basically everywhere we're sitting down and doing what we just said, which is if I'm using Excel, what are the things I want to do? And what would be easier if I had a model that just could understand me and understand what I'm trying to achieve? And then we're building it into the application and doing that work to bring your application data, your context, your organization data to that model so that it can actually do the right thing. And so, we're going to keep going on that trajectory of figuring out how we can change the way people work. And then, of course, in my role and in Azure, we're working with customers from around the world to figure out for every other organization and every other industry, how do we enable this technology to get the best out of people, to make people happier and more productive, and just really eliminate some of the drudgery from like day-to-day work.
Yeah. So some of the customer experience is actually enhanced because the people behind the scenes are actually doing better work or faster work and things like that.
Yeah, I think there's a concern, right? People often have of this is going to replace me or replace my job, and I think this is part of the guidance of like get hands-on with the technology. As soon as you play with it, you will see that like the word Copilot, we chose very intentionally. This is a tool that you want to make your work better. This is not a tool to replace you, and we haven't been designing anything with the idea of full automation. In fact, I know there was discussions earlier about the mistakes that the technology can make, what people sometimes call hallucinations, and part of the step to make this work, despite some of the flaws the technology has, is to make sure that it's co-designed with the user in mind. And so, yeah, I think at least now if I had to do my work without having it, I would be sort of frustrated because it's such a powerful tool.
Wonderful. So you've talked about getting the strategy right, or thinking through the strategy before using. Maybe using it as you said, talked about Copilot a lot, but it seems to be this sort of companion tool for people and things like that.
Yeah, we think of AI as a tool to augment human capabilities. There's a lot of conversation about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and the idea there is often it's at human level capability. But our goal is actually much more, let's have something that's great at what humans aren't great at, so that together the combined team can actually be the best possible. And so we're much more focused on that. How does this AI be your co-pilot for your work, for your business, not a human replacement?
That's wonderful. Sarah Bird, Microsoft, thank you so much for revealing and helping us understand this better. Thank you.
Great, thank you.